What's up everyone, I'm Sid Vicious and we're back with some more exciting Path of Exile 2 news. Today we got a lot to discuss thanks to an incredible interview conducted by Zizaran. GGG dropped an absolute ton of information during this interview, so much so that I'll be making 2 videos to cover it all. I always like to add my insight to the content, and in this video we're diving into the biggest news, the auction house, and we'll also cover some various aspects related to items that was talked about. So let's jump right in. Let's start with the bombshell, the auction house. That's right, GGG is seriously considering adding an auction house to Path of Exile 2. They've acknowledged the need for changes in the trade system and are looking at other games like Last Epoch for inspiration. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with PoE 1 and Reddit, there has been a lot of buzz about TFT, which stands for the Forbidden Trove. TFT is essentially a Discord server that offers numerous quality of life features for trading and services in Path of Exile 1. Many players commonly use bulk trades for essences, compasses, maps, etc. And as for services, they cover everything from boss killing to challenge selling, and even the controversial mirror services, where you can copy top tier items for a designated fee. The issue here is that TFT is a private community ran by a select few. This setup can lead to problems, including erratic and random bans. The decision to explore an auction house in PoE 2 is a direct response to the TFT situation. Players on Reddit have been calling for GGG to address this issue, and it's great to see that they're now willing to reevaluate their stance on trade. So, what's on the table for this auction house? GGG emphasized the importance of having instant buyouts and a robust search function in the trade system. These features are crucial to ensure a smooth and efficient trading experience, and players have come to expect them. Another key point they made clear is that Path of Exile won't introduce soul-bound items. They want to maintain item tradability, and this is an essential consideration for building the auction house. Now, while these ideas sound incredible, GGG recognizes the need for some limitations to prevent potential issues. They've looked at what Last Epoch is doing and are considering a similar approach. In Last Epoch, there's an auction house, but you need to earn favor along with currency to trade. Favor serves as a tax on trades. The big question is, what form will this tax take in PoE 2? GGG is thinking about using gold as a resource to limit trade. Players would earn gold through gameplay and use it for trade-related actions. Gold fees would help prevent item inflation, and gold itself would be untradeable. GGG also mentioned that the tax burden would fall on the buyer, as they're the ones sifting through all the listings to find the real seller. They also hinted that currency would have a lower tax than items, since items are the main things players want. Overall, this approach makes sense. Without some form of tax, high-valued items could skyrocket in price, and I'm already thinking about potential trading strategies like buying cheap unique armors, val-orbing them for great implicit mods, and flipping them. And I'm sure all the veterans who like to trade have formulated all sorts of strategies for PoE 2. Additionally, GGG plans to determine the number of items a player can list for trade based on factors like stash tabs. Essentially, you can list as many items as you can fit into your stash tab. They also want the system to be accessible to all players. In PoE 1, you need premium stash tabs to sell items. But in PoE 2, it seems like free-to-play players may be able to engage in active trading without the need to purchase these premium stash tabs. They can just use the free ones. This is a game changer and encourages more players to stick around. And if they stick around longer, then I think they will invest in stash tabs for efficient gameplay. It's important to note that none of this is set in stone yet. This is a work in progress, and there will be more discussions ahead. GGG is cautious about making promises at this stage, but I think this is a good direction and welcomes a lot more new players to enjoy the game. There's a lot to think about with these proposed changes, but overall, it seems like it's a positive direction for most players without heavily impacting the top end of the player base. Talking about the auction house, one thing that pairs well are items. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what was discussed regarding items in PoE 2. First up, we have the topic of unidentified items, which has some people somewhat divided. Ziz raised the question of whether identification scrolls are still relevant, suggesting that they might be more suitable for CRPGs like Baldur's Gate. GGG's perspective is interesting. They believe that unidentified items add an element of mystery and keep item drops engaging. Expanding on this, Ziz also inquired about loot mechanics, touching on the subject of smart loot mentioned in previous interviews. There was some confusion about what Chris Wilson referred to as smart loot, which implied that items would drop less frequently but with better rolls. GGG clarified that while they aim to reduce the likelihood of poor item drops, they don't want to dictate which mods should appear together. Their goal is to make items valuable right from the moment they hit the ground. I love that Ziz brought this up because it's been on my mind as well. He mentioned examples like Talisman and End of Heist rewards, where players felt compelled to engage with specific content due to exceptionally strong item drops. And I can't remember what league this was, but everyone who played that league was running talismans because they were exceptionally strong. Talisman rolls were absurd, like 4 or 5 stats that were tier 1 perfect rolls with good passive anointed on as well. GGG acknowledged that they handpicked these mods in such cases, so the real question is how they plan to make items matter without identification. If items are dropped identified, we would just make our item filters insanely strong. We would create item filters like last epoch where we can customize any stat we are looking for on top of any specific base. So I understand the need for items being unidentified, but if you want me to pick up items, I need some way of knowing how good they will be. After all, we don't want the game to turn into Diablo 4 experience where you have to look at every single item, making the game feel like a stash management simulator and less of an ARPG experience. Moving forward, Ziz asked about the possibility of drop-only mods in PoE 2. GGG expressed interest in the concept but stressed the importance of not making specific content mandatory for all builds. They aim to maintain diversity in build choices and item acquisition. Some examples include Del Spectre mods or incursion joint mods like fire resistance with fire damage leech. GGG should continue introducing drop-only mods and specific content to keep things interesting. Another closely related topic is veiled items and their impact on the game. GGG mentioned that some veiled mods might be globally better than base mods, but they're concerned about making every build feel obliged to target specific content for optimal items. This ties back to the issue of making sure players aren't forced into particular content. GGG acknowledged the importance of certain mechanics like Ashling Slam, which players often seek as a service from others. They're planning to address this not only in PoE 2, but also in PoE 1, focusing on resolving services by itemizing them as much as possible. Again, following up on the TFT situation. Now let's dive into something fun, item design philosophy. GGG discussed uniques and their role in offering diversity and experimentation. While some uniques may lack life or have downsides, their unique properties should compensate by being powerful or special. In PoE, we have a ton of uniques, and let's face it, many are useless or uninteresting. However, GGG's goal is to create a library of uniques, allowing mad scientists out there to experiment and create new builds. This leads us to the purpose of unique items. Ziz raised concerns about certain uniques in PoE 1 feeling less useful as you progress. GGG said that uniques designed to assist with leveling will still be in PoE 2. They also emphasized that unique should be like puzzle pieces, possibly fitting into specific builds or synergizing with other items rather than being universally powerful. Ziz continued to ask about how PoE 2 approaches unique items compared to PoE 1. GGG explained that while the approach isn't necessarily different, they've learned from past experiences. They aim to ensure that uniques provide distinct advantages or abilities that make them worth using, maintaining balance and encouraging a mix of rare and unique items in character builds. Ziz then wondered if PoE 2's technological advancements might enable new features like providing more skill points or additionally ascendancy points through unique items. GGG discussed the challenges of implementing such features in PoE 1 and suggested that while there aren't major tech changes, PoE 2's improved animation systems make it easier to create unique items with custom animation, skills, and effects. This is interesting because it opens up possibilities for unique items to have various additional skills. Imagine a unique item granting unique abilities. The only game that relates closely to this is Divinity Original Sin 2, where in the beginning you got Migo's Ring, which granted you teleport and made the early game really easy. In PoE 2, uniques might not be guaranteed, but they could potentially provide benefits for different types of content. Also, GGG did confirm there will be chase uniques. In my opinion, I think they should have different chase uniques from PoE 1. For example, I don't want to play two different games and try to get Headhunter and Mageblood in both PoE 1 and 2. GGG briefly mentioned that set items are not needed in PoE 2. Their goal is to encourage players to create their own sets by finding synergies between unique items and rares or even magic items. They're concerned that set items might make it challenging to replace individual pieces and possibly limit item variety. Cool thing about PoE is like what GGG said here, is that they want you to make your own sets and use different combinations. For example, one of the tech in PoE is using Viridi's Veil unique helmet along with a magic ring to make you either hexproof or crit immune based on which ring slot you place it in. Various builds use this little niche tech, such as Ice Spears, which stacks a lot of curses onto yourself. Using this makes it so that you negate all the downsides of the curses. Finally, GGG discussed the topic of item mods and mod dilution. Mod dilution occurs when there are too many sources of item mods, diminishing the impact of each mod on a character's build. GGG stated that having 6 mods per rare item is considered sufficient, and they don't intend to introduce more rarities with additional mods. They are happy with normal, magic, rare, and unique tiers that currently exist. They also mentioned that player quantity on items will be removed, and item rarity as a stat will be present in PoE 2. Item rarity will be available as both a prefix and a suffix on helmets and jewelry, while it will only be a suffix on other items. They said they made changes to the mod pool, which could potentially shift the importance of certain mods on different gear pieces. One exciting change is that in PoE 2, we finally get pants, not as a new item slot, but as something that changes based on the boots we wear. Boots are now connected to our pants in PoE 2. And that wraps up today's video. I've covered a lot of ground from the interview that Ziz conducted with Hrishi and Jonathan Rogers from GGG. This is my take on the auction house and items topics. I wanted to package them together. Stay tuned for another video where I'll dive into the endgame, mechanics, and more from the interview. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss any Path of Exile news. I'm Sid Vicious, and I will see you later.